Last week's video discussed all sorts of paintings from art history showing the unicorn with its associated symbolism related to chastity, purity and chivalry. This video looks at two spectacular and mysterious series of tapestries revolving around the unicorn. Both series were designed and woven around the year 1500, but they are not related. The first one is entitled The Lady and the Unicorn, which is on display at the Musée de Cluny in Paris. And the second series is entitled The Unicorn Tapestries and can be seen at the Cloisters, part of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Both series were designed in Paris and woven in current-day Belgium. Let's have a closer look at both of them. The Lady and the Unicorn series in Paris consists of 6 large tapestries, the smallest one measuring some 10 by 10 feet or over 3 meters in width and height, and the largest one measures 12 by 15 feet or some 4 by 4.5 meters. The first 5 tapestries represent the 5 senses: hearing, sight, smell, taste and touch, while the meaning of the 6th tapestry is more mysterious and contains an inscription reading "À mon seul désir," translated as "my only desire." The tapestries contain several common elements: a noble woman at the center, flanked by a unicorn and a lion. Based on last week's video, the noble woman is likely to be a virgin, as only virgins could tame a unicorn. These figures are placed on a kind of blue, flowery island against a red background filled with more flowers and animals. A popular background motif for tapestries during the late 15th and early 16th centuries, also known in French as mille fleurs, translated as 1,000 flowers. The general idea is that the 5 senses are a reference to the earthly pleasures which were believed to prohibit people from going to heaven, and they are particularly set in a kind of courtly setting, so perhaps they were designed to especially warn the noble people about the dangers of earthly desires. Let's have a look at the 5 senses, which are not too difficult to distinguish after some careful study. First up is the tapestry representing hearing. It shows a noble woman on the left, in front of a portable organ, standing on top of a table with a rug containing an oriental pattern. The noble woman's servant stands on the other side, and she assists by operating the bellows to supply the organ with wind. The 2 ladies are flanked by the unicorn and the lion, both holding a banner. The coat of arms on the banners provides a clue who would have commissioned this work, and the arms fairly closely match those of the Leviste family, which would then make Antoine the Younger the most likely commissioner, as he was a powerful nobleman at the French court at the time of the commission. If we look at the second tapestry representing smell, you can see that the lion and the unicorn are now also adorned with the same coat of arms. It shows the servant holding a basket of flowers, while the noble woman is making a wreath out of them. But how do we know this represents smell? The answer can be found by looking at the monkey, who has snatched a flower from another basket and is smelling it. Next up is sight, showing the unicorn looking into a mirror where we can see its likeness, although the angle and reflection of the mirror are not very realistic, but conveniently show the viewer that it should be aimed at the unicorn. The fourth tapestry shows the sense of taste, with the woman looking at the parakeet on her left hand, while stretching out her other hand to take a candy from the maid's basket. The next tapestry shows touch. This time the noble woman is holding the banner, and she touches the alicorn, which is the magical horn of the unicorn. The final tapestry is the hardest to interpret. One thing that is clear is that it contains an inscription on the tent behind her, which can be translated as "my only desire." Whereas in the other tapestries the lady looks quite serious, she seems a bit more cheerful here, while she puts the necklace she was wearing in the other tapestries in a jewelry box that her maid is holding. Although you can also interpret it as her picking up the necklace from the box, and that would change the interpretation of this scene. In case she is putting the necklace down, this would be the sixth and latest in the series of tapestries, and we could interpret this as her putting her luxury away as a way to atone for her earthly desires in the other tapestries. But if she is picking up the necklace, we should consider this as the first in the series, as she is wearing the necklace in the other tapestries. The interpretation of this scenario is more complicated, but it may then be a reference to her virginity or her loyalty for God, which would explain the presence of the dog on the pillow, though this interpretation makes less sense to me from an art historical sense. Finally, another interpretation is that the last tapestry could symbolize the question on whether there is a sixth sense. The final question is why the unicorn is included in all these tapestries. The most logical explanation I can come up with is that the lion represents strength, while the unicorn represents love, and during the Middle Ages it was especially linked to courtly love. But the unicorn was also connected with virtues like temperance and chastity, all offsetting the earthly pleasures of the five senses. The Unicorn Tapestries in New York consist of 7 different scenes, and the size of these tapestries is about the same as the Paris tapestries, some 12 by 12 feet on average, though one of them is much smaller, as it is a combination of 2 fragments of a larger tapestry. The overall theme of these tapestries is the hunt for a unicorn, starting with the hunters enter the woods. We see 5 hunters, their 5 hunting dogs, and their spears searching for the elusive unicorn. And while no unicorn can be seen yet, the spotter in the tree on the right background seems to suggest that the unicorn has been seen and that they are on their way. Notice how lush the forest is. Across the various tapestries, we can identify more than 100 unique trees and flowers, all in bloom, and just like in the previous series of tapestries, there are many wonderful animals included as well. So instead of looking at this like the hunt for a unicorn, you may also focus on the beauty of nature surrounding these scenes. The hunters first encounter the unicorn in the second tapestry, entitled "The Unicorn Purifies Water," which we learned in last week's video is one of the magical abilities of the unicorn. Looking at the dogs and hunters, all still seems to be at peace still, as if they're still unsure what to do next. The title of the third tapestry is "The Unicorn Crosses a Stream," and this is the moment that the hunters and dogs get into action, while the unicorn is trying to escape. "The Unicorn Defends Himself" is the title of the fourth tapestry. It shows its ferocity as it refuses to be captured or killed by the hunters and their dogs. You can see how he attacks one of the dogs, but it also seems that the unicorn is surrounded and seemingly has no chance of winning here. The fifth tapestry, "The Unicorn Surrenders to a Maiden," is the one consisting of 2 fragments. Whereas the hunters could not get the unicorn, a maiden or virgin could, according to the legends, and that is the subject here. You can see how the unicorn has calmed down. Much of this tapestry has not survived, and it is actually not the maiden that we see in the background, as that is her servant. But on the right we can just see an arm and a hand, gently stroking the manes of the unicorn. This is the hand of the virgin who has been able to tame the unicorn. Then comes the hunter's return to the castle, which includes 2 different scenes. On the top left, we can see how the hunters are finally able to kill the unicorn, and at the center, the seemingly dead unicorn is brought back home, where we can see several spectators leaving the castle to witness the results of the hunt. The final tapestry is probably the most famous one, known as "The Unicorn Rests in a Garden." But there is doubt that this tapestry was part of the original series. One contradiction is that the unicorn appears dead in the previous tapestry. But it could be that the unicorn was just severely wounded, or came back to life, as you can still see some of the blood streaming from his body. And if it came back to life, it would be a clear analogy to the resurrection of Jesus. Or is the red on the unicorn the juice of the pomegranate tree to which he is colored? If this is a full series, it was most likely created for some newlyweds, showing how the groom would be tamed by the love of his recent marriage. Well, I hope this discussion was interesting. There's much more to learn about these two series of tapestries and many unanswered questions. For example, there are not only doubts on whether the final part of the Unicorn Tapestries is part of the original series, but also whether the first tapestry belongs to the series, as its style is quite different. But I'll leave it at that, and we can always discuss more in the comment section down below. Finally, if you enjoyed this, please support the channel by subscribing and hitting that thumbs up button. Thanks for watching.